love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up, it's time to look at the enemy.
Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. In this episode I'm going to be talking about life without parole. Now, life without parole was introduced in 1983 and it was kept for the most severe and heinous of crimes. People that have been released from prison and went on to commit further murders, people that have committed multiple murders, and people whose crimes are so severe it only merits a life without parole. Now, the person I'm going to be talking about in this episode is Mark Hobson. But before I get into it, I would just like to say a massive thank you to all my subscribers for your continuing support. But if you're not subscribed to the channel already, please go down and hit that button, because 80% of my viewers are still not subscribed to my channel. Now, I know a lot of you didn't realize you weren't subscribed. So if you could go and double check, please, because once my channel gets bigger and better, I'll be getting more podcast guests on. So Mark Hobson, also known as the Spree Killer, was responsible for 4 murders. So Mark Richard Hobson, born on the 2nd of September 1969, is a British spree killer who killed 4 people in North Yorkshire, England in July 2004. He was arrested after an 8-day nationwide manhunt involving more than 500 police officers and 12 police forces, during which time he was Britain's most wanted man. Police discovered notes written by Hobson that showed the murders were premeditated and well planned, including a to-do note detailing how he planned to lure his girlfriend's twin sister to his flat, and a shopping list for bin liners, tape, tire wraps, fly spray and air freshener. Against his girlfriend's sister's name, he had written "use and abuse at will." The list of planned victims also included his girlfriend's parents and the parents of his ex-wife. Hobson was tried for the murders in April 2005. Pleading guilty, he was sentenced to 4 terms of life imprisonment with a recommendation he should never be released from prison. This was one of the first times that such a recommendation had been made for someone who admitted their crime at the first opportunity. Hobson is currently imprisoned at HMP Wakefield, West Yorkshire. Mark Hobson was born at Manygates Maternity Hospital in Wakefield, West Riding of Yorkshire, on the 2nd of December 1969. The first family home was in Norton Street, Wakefield, where Hobson grew up with his parents, Peter and Sandra, and his 2 sisters, Melanie and Leslie. They then moved to Woodhouse Road, Eastmoor. Hobson's father was a coal miner who had started his career at Walton Colliery in 1958 and later become deputy and overmanager at the city's Parkhill Colliery until its closure in 1982. The family then moved to the Selby area, where Hobson's father took work at a local coalfield. Hobson's mother worked as a machinist. Hobson's childhood was described by his contemporaries as happy and stable. He attended Heathview Primary School in Eastmoor, Wakefield, and Stayner High School and Brayton High School, Selby. One of his teachers recalled him as very well behaved, so average and ordinary that he was almost anonymous. In 1991, Hobson moved in with his childhood sweetheart and her 2 children from another relationship. They married in 1993 after the birth of their daughter. Hobson worked at Drax Power Station and was also a landscape gardener. His wife described him as the perfect husband. In 1998, Hobson registered as a nightclub doorman and began working at Cannes nightclub in Marketplace, Selby. On New Year's Day 1999, he walked out of his family without giving a reason and began using cannabis. His wife said there was no one else involved. He just didn't want married life anymore. It was bizarre. I couldn't believe it. He turned to pot and drinking heavily. He never drank when we were married, but now he got out of his face. He became like a zombie. His life just went completely off the rails. During the evening of the 10th of July 2004, he killed girlfriend Claire Sanderson, 27-year-old, in the flat they shared on Millfield Drive, Campbellsforth. She was struck on the head 17 times with a hammer and strangled, after which Hobson wrapped her body in bin bags. A plastic bag had also been placed over her head. Subsequent forensic analysis determined that an area of the flat had been cleaned with bleach, but Claire had been first attacked in the living room and then taken into the bathroom. There was no evidence of recent sexual activity. On the 17th of July, he telephoned Claire's twin sister, Diane, and told her Claire was ill with glandular fever and wanted her to visit. When Diane arrived at the flat that evening, she too was beaten with a hammer after being tortured with a disposable razor and scissors. She had been hogtied, and her left nipple was completely bitten off. Police believe Hobson may have eaten it. The cause of her death was determined to be strangulation. Her head was also covered with a plastic bag, and ligatures were found on her wrists, ankle, and neck. Her pubic hair had been shaved, and she had been sexually assaulted. On Sunday, the 18th of July 2004, the twins' mutilated bodies were discovered by Diane's boyfriend, Ian Harrison, and the girl's father, George. Escaping the house just before Ian turned up, Hobson asked his mum for a lift to the hospital to visit Claire, who he said had been in an accident, his mum unwittingly aiding his escape plan. 25 miles away in the village of Strensel, Hobson wandered into the house of an elderly couple, James and Joan Britton, both aged 80. He battered James with his walking stick, then set about Joan with her walking stick. Then, as she lay on the floor, Hobson plunged a kitchen knife into Mrs. Britton's back with such force that the blade went straight through his defenseless elderly victim and was only stopped when the blade hit the floor beneath. The knife broke and the blade was still inside Mrs. Britton's body when she was discovered around 11:15 a.m. Hobson then went through the house, presumably looking for money, but leaving a trail of fingerprints. Hobson spent the next 7 days living in the woods, but was suffering due to lack of water. Hobson was arrested at a petrol station on the 25th of July 2004 in the village of Shipton by Benningborough near York, following a nationwide manhunt. At his subsequent trial in 2005, Hobson admitted all 4 murders. He was sentenced to life imprisonment on the 27th of May 2005 with a recommendation that he should never be released. The court was also told that Hobson had stabbed a love rival 5 times in the chest in a daylight attack in front of shoppers in Selby in 2002, leaving the victim with a punctured lung. Hobson had admitted grievous bodily harm and avoided a prison sentence, instead receiving a community punishment order. This lenient sentence came under much criticism in the light of Hobson's later offending. Hobson lodged an appeal to have his lower minimum sentence set, claiming that he should have been given a more lenient sentence because he admitted all 4 murders at the earliest opportunity. He also claimed that no other murderer who admitted their crimes at the first opportunity had ever been recommended for lifelong imprisonment. This was not true, as a similar recommendation had been imposed on child killers Timothy Moores and Brett Tyler in 1996, even though they had admitted their crimes at the earliest opportunity. The appeal was turned down by the Court of Appeal when Lord Phillips agreed with the trial judge's recommendation, saying that in his opinion, Hobson should never be released, regardless of a guilty plea, since the murders had been so horrific. Shortly before his court case, Hobson was placed into solitary confinement for 3 months after attacking Ian Huntley and scalding him with a bucket of boiling water. A prison service spokesman said that, due to the nature of high-security prisoners, it's impossible to prevent incidents of this nature occasionally happening. In January 2006, letters were released from Wakefield Prison, where Hobson blamed alcohol for his killing spree. It had been revealed at Hobson's trial that he was an alcoholic who regularly drank as many as 20 pints a day and also used other drugs regularly. But one thing's for sure, Mark Hobson will never be released from prison. Rightly so, for killing his 4 victims. But I hope you're enjoying the content, people. Remember to like and subscribe. Take care.